Rohatsu Sesshin, 2024. So I'm very impressed by everyone's spirit, by showing up into the zendo, into meals, into work, staying up last night. The spirit of aspiration, the spirit of wanting to know the truth, the spirit of wanting to actually realize for yourself the Buddha's teaching is moving. Because it is rare in the world to encounter an overt aspiration. I feel it's important to be appreciated. Yesterday, Shozen was talking about a silent mind. A mind with no thought. And with no clinging to thought. And she mentioned the three-part breath, in, out, and silence. So let's do that right now to start this off. Inspiration, 1. Expiration, relax. 2. Pause in stillness. You can touch the quiet at the base of the expiration. And continue throughout the talk, throughout the day. Inspiration, expiration, silence, quiet. Now, the quiet at the end of the expiration is also a stillness of the body. Stillness of thought, but stillness of the body. So as we do this, let the body become completely relaxed and still. Not relaxation as a goal, but more like snow falling. It falls and is still. And notice that you can be completely aware in that silence. Harmony comes from being aligned at the root, from recognizing this root that is present. Harmony comes from being aligned in our vows, being aligned in the aspiration for kindness and goodness, being aligned in our vow to help others. One of the ways that we align ourselves is by coming back over and over again to that stillness, silence, quiet. When we are aligned with ourselves, we can then be aligned with the community, we can be aligned with the earth. When our mind is at home with itself, we can rest. We function with less and less friction. Even if we're tired, even if we have complex demands. There is a quiet that is revealed with the non-activity of thought. A stillness. Again, right now, touch the stillness This stillness is more real than any activity. This stillness is more real, more visceral, more true than any activity. Activity is transient, it's temporary, it's gone in a flash. It's like a bubble, a flicker of a candle, a flash of lightning. The stillness is the same stillness of 1,000 years. And how do we explore that stillness? By being still. Stillness is the 8th ox herding picture in the 10 ox herding pictures. The empty circle, an inso. The inso expresses the timeless, a circle with no beginning, no end. The stillness at the bottom of our breath is always the same stillness. Verify it. The activity that is on top of that stillness, so to speak, is always different. And we can actually watch carefully and see that in a way, all activity is subsequent to the stillness. In a way, all activity is on top of or is extra from the stillness. Check it out. If you explore the stillness by being still, think of not thinking by not thinking, explore the stillness with stillness, we find that that stillness includes alert awareness without words or movement. The stillness at the bottom of the breath is also at the top of the breath. Is also throughout the breath. And one of the qualities of that stillness is alert awareness. And that stillness is only perceived, that stillness is only touched in what we call the present moment. Recognize the stillness, the silence, the quiet, whatever word you want to use. Now notice that thought is always about something else. Sensation reminds us of a memory which has a meaning or a story. Thought is about what is already happened, or speculation about what might happen. And from this vantage point, we're sitting still on a train facing backward, and we're just watching what's already happened. All the sensations, all the recognitions, all the assessments, all the memories already happened. Always in the past. Like your hand in running water, you put your hand in running water, and the water that you actually feel is already gone. Something taps your hand, and by the time you recognize it, it's already gone. It's already flowed on. I think a minimum response time even is like 200 milliseconds, something like that, after the fact. And of course, most of us respond to events even much more slowly than that. All that we are aware of with the mind, with the thinking mind, has already happened. It's already over. What's left? If the present moment is our labeling of something, it's already over. If we say, here's the present moment, that here is already over. If we are looking carefully, this present moment, this experience of stillness and silence, doesn't actually exist. Can't be found. It's already gone. That is, the recognition of it with the mind is already over, because the mind is only able to process what's already happened. So when we go to the end of the breath and we become still, we touch the timeless, we touch the stillness that has been there since before the Buddha's awakening, and will be there after the world goes up in flames, or whatever. And we look at, with that alert awareness, does awareness move? Does awareness have a past or a future? The alert awareness of the stillness, experience of this moment, does it move? Thoughts, of course, move. That is the nature of thought. Idea, sensation, all the six senses. And in some traditions, they say that, well, if we are looking closely at this, everything we see is already gone. It's all a dream. It's all a dream within a dream. We can't put our finger on it. We can't actually find it. It's already gone. What's left? Verify that. Go into the place that is still and not moving. Touch it with the body, so to speak. The stillness and quiet of the mind is the stillness and quiet of the body. The stillness and quiet of the body is the stillness and quiet of this moment. The stillness and quiet of this moment is just this. Confirm it. But you'll notice that any confirmation we make is basically more thoughts, confirming thoughts. All the evidence that we use to confirm things are thoughts confirming thoughts. Thoughts confirming memories, which are thoughts. Thoughts concerning projections, which are thoughts. Thoughts confirming thoughts. The timeless can't be confirmed because it's not a thought. Thought can't touch it. Thought says is not. A thought says was not. But when we touch the timeless stillness, what can be said about it? what is present. Everything we perceive is already gone, and all we can use to confirm things is our thoughts, which are already gone, which are nothing but motion. How can we confirm for ourselves the so-called present? Go to the stillness, the silence, before thought, before affirmation. Another word for that stillness is emptiness. Touch the stillness, the quiet, in this case, calling it the emptiness. The emptiness that was there before the Buddha. The emptiness that has never been filled. The emptiness that is always so-called present. With that understanding, let's look again at the koans that Fuho discussed. Now, koans are multi-layered, and they can be seen and expressed from different kind of angles. And perhaps a koan is dealing with the functioning of the stillness, or the skillful use of words, or skillful use of action, or vow, or what is beyond rational or irrational, or the dreamlike nature of reality, or personal experience, or personal responsibility. There's lots of different levels and ways we can look at this. But in this case, today, because of the Buddha's awakening, because that awakening is not in the past, because that is a recognition right here. Case 22, Mahakashapa and the flagpole. So the Buddha had his awakening, and then the next so-called successor, Mahakashapa. And then Mahakashapa was asked by Ananda, the Buddha transmitted the robe to you. Anything else? Mahakashapa said, Ananda, yes. Mahakashapa said, take down, chop up, disappear, get rid of the flagpole. Now, it's said, actually, all the commentaries say this, the only place I've ever actually read it, is that when there was going to be a Dharma dialogue of some sort, there would be a flag raised from some temples or monasteries. And in the commentaries they say that this flag represents a dialogue is going to happen, an exposition, an inquiry. I think Fuho discussed a number of details of the koan. But let's look at this koan again, let's rephrase the koan. Ananda says to Mahakashapa, in the past the Buddha gave you something, he gave you this robe. Well, how about now? Anything left? How about now? Show me. What's going on? That's a real question. What is it? What is it? Of course, we're all interested. Ananda is interested in his own awakening, his own understanding, and so he's really asking about himself. Hopefully, Mahakashapa says something and he'll have a recognition, a realization. We talked about stillness, we've talked about quiet, but this quiet stillness is a live, penetrating, dreamlike isness. And it's only found now, and it's a recognition, and it has to be It's not processed in time, because in time it's already over. So how do you express that? Now, no one can taste the truth for us. No one knows what our experience is except for us, if that. So this is a question that is about Ananda, about Ananda's direct experience. Mahakashapa says, what is your direct experience? Ananda is asking purportedly this question of somebody else. He's actually asking him about himself. And then Mahakashapa says, Ananda, what is it? Yes. In a way, it's not about a dialogue. It has nothing to do with Mahakashapa. It's just yes. Yes. The dynamic stillness, the dynamic silence of this moment is alive and vivid. Yes. It is a recognition instantly with confidence. Yes. If we look carefully, we go into this alive stillness. We go to the bottom of the breath. We begin to recognize it. It's an easy place to recognize it. And we begin investigating, well, where does it exist? It's always here, always present. It's timeless. It's not in the past. It's always here. And we begin to really rest in that, know it. How do you know stillness? By being still. How do you know silence? By being silent. How do you know quiet? By being quiet. We rest in that knowing. And we see all activity emerges instant by instant from that stillness. In a way, we can say that the function and the isness of things are not different. Mahakashapa says to us, confirm it, and then express it. Yes. That was his expression. In a particular way, that particular karmic bundle, which is whatever we think of Ananda as being, our particular karmic bundle, what is it? And when we begin to recognize what it is, not an isness, of course, but we really recognize this ineffable presence, which is mysterious. We know that it is Anandas and Mahakashapas and George Bushes and miserable dogs and all beings. So when we're working on a koan like Mu, same question. What is it? How do you express the ineffable? In a way, you inevitably express the ineffable. But how do you express the ineffable that you know, that you've tasted in a live, dynamic manner? In one way, of course, you can't help it. But in another way, there is a lack of recognition, and that recognition is important. In an earlier koan, number 6 in the Mumonkan, the Buddha transmitted the robe to Mahakashapa. Buddha held up a flower, Mahakashapa smiled, and then the Buddha said, I have the all-pervading true Dharma, incomparable nirvana, exquisite teaching of formless form. It does not rely upon letters and is transmitted outside the scriptures. I now hand it to Mahakashapa. How can you hand alert awareness to someone else? How can you hand stillness to someone else? What is the smile that happens? Just like with Ananda, it's a recognition. Oh, I recognize, right here, right now, I recognize that this, we're calling stillness, is always present. I recognize that it is the stillness of the Buddhas, the emptiness of all things. It's a recognition. Ananda recognizes it and says, yes. Mahakashapa recognizes it and smiles. How will you recognize it? How will you express it? The Dharma which we talk about being transmitted is not something that is picked up, packaged, given to UPS, and then delivered. It can only be recognized. And it can only be recognized by us going into the experience and knowing it from the inside. And it's ineffable and yet totally knowable. Unpin-downable and yet totally expressible. And one entrance gate, which Chosen mentioned yesterday, is the stillness at the end of the breath. The Buddha recognized it sitting under the Bodhi tree. Mahakashapa recognized it with a smile, a flower. Ananda recognized it with a yes. Right now, inhalation, exhalation, total stillness. Again, a timeless breath. Inhalation, exhalation, total stillness. When we're attending to that breath, we don't know whether it's the breath that we're having when we're a young person at the beginning of our lives, or whether it's the breath of an old person at the end of their lives. We don't know. It's just a breath. It's just now. It's just this breath. It has no time to it. With great mindfulness in, great mindfulness out, and relax, and then stop. And investigate the stop. You'll find the stop doesn't stop. Perhaps this recognition is so ordinary we overlook it. It's so obvious we dismiss it. It's so profound we can't comprehend it. So we have a little experience of stillness, emptiness, presence. Well, the mind then comes in and says, well, so what? The purpose of a child being born is being born. It's not so that they can get born, grow up, get educated, join the workforce, have children, and go on vacation. The purpose of awakening is awakening. It's not the functioning of that awakening, although that's an aspect. The purpose of a child being born is the child being born. The function of awakening, the function of this recognition, is the recognition itself. The astonishing thing about waking up is waking up. There's another koan in the case, in Mumonkan. A non-Buddhist questions the Buddha. A non-Buddhist, sometimes it says a Hindu, sometimes it says an outsider, somebody who is not a Dharma practitioner, comes to the Buddha and says, without giving me words, without explaining doctrine, without avoiding explaining doctrine, what is the essence of your teaching? What is the truth? Without falling into this or that, without falling into yes or no, without falling into disputation, I am right and you're wrong. What is the essence of your teaching? And the Buddha is silent. And the non-Buddhist then bows and says, thank you for your teaching. I am now liberated. What's he say? The great compassion of the world honored one has dispelled the clouds of my ignorance and enabled me to be enlightened. Making a bow of gratitude, he departed. And then Ananda asked the Buddha, what did this guy realize? So if somebody comes to the Buddha and says, tell me the truth. What's the truth beyond words and not words? What's the truth beyond stillness and not stillness? And the Buddha just remains silent. Ananda doesn't quite get it. If all that is required of us is to become a stump, if all that is required of us, for the challenges and questions of life will just become a log, an unresponsive lump, then that would not be what the Buddha taught. That would not be the great functioning of the Buddha. That would not be a true expression of the stillness at the root of our being. Because that stillness is dynamic. That stillness is alive. That stillness is an eternally yes. It's an eternal affirmation. Not an agreement, eternal affirmation. Hi, hi. The Buddha, who was a master of the non-dual, responded vibrantly to this according to the circumstances. And in this particular case, the circumstances call for that particular functioning, stillness. But if we go home and somebody asks us, well, how was your week? What did you learn? And we pretend to be a stone statue, or we become a frozen picture of what we think of awakening is, or we say, don't bother me, I have to go and be quiet, I have to be calm, I have to go find my center, I have to go and hang on to this smooth, easy feeling that I have. We will not be warmly received. And if people say, we come back like that, and people say, well, why in the world would you go if you come back as a rigid, what's it? Did the Buddha practice so assiduously and for so long just to become a lump? That only way they can respond to something is be silent? Circumstances require appropriate responses. And the appropriate response that comes out of the stillness, the non-dual, that comes out of the root of being, matches the circumstances of particular situation. If we go home and someone is inquiring, they're also inquiring, well, how's that going to affect me? And if you respond with warmth, with kindness, with connection, Oh, I get it. If we respond with trying to meet the circumstances with the most beneficent way, with the four immeasurables, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and we're responsive to it, that is the functioning of the non-dual. Because the non-dual is both halves, the seal and that which is imprinted. Both halves are part of that whole, and from the deep silence and inclusivity, the emptiness, we can see, oh, my life and the circumstances of my life and other people's lives, they fit together like a box and lid. And of course, we screw it up. But it's the way it is. And then we do our best again. So as we finish, as we recognize and touch the deep stillness, the silence at the root of our being, and without losing track of that, we also are responsive and endeavor to say yes to the existence of each circumstance, and then to respond appropriately to it. When we say returning empty-handed, Dogen Zenji was asked, what did you get when you went to China? And he said, I know I've returned empty-handed. My eyes are horizontal, my nose is vertical. If we return empty-handed of the fear, the aloofness, the brittleness, the anger, the self-centeredness, if we return empty-handed of that, then naturally the great warmth and stillness at the root of life will respond. And from that vantage point, everything is a miracle. Everything. And we may be grumpy old men, but nonetheless, it still is a miracle. And we do our best, given our particular karmic bundle, to respond appropriately to the miracle of each thing we meet. In that case, everyone, including ourselves, will appreciate the hard work that we've done. Touch that stillness, that silence, that emptiness. Touch it again and again. Know it. Be familiar with it. And then watch it. Respond to each circumstance. Then the Dharma comes alive. And the Dharma flowers. As I often say, please have great confidence. Great confidence. Once we touch this root, we have confidence that it's always there is an adequate word. Have great confidence. And then respond with the four immeasurables. Respond as appropriate to circumstances. Loving kindness, sympathetic joy, equanimity, compassion. May it be so.